What's the story, Morning Glory? What is the word, hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for this review of 90 Day Fiance The Other Way, Season 4, The Tell All Part 2. So, the Tell All Part 2 it was okay. I enjoyed it, especially towards the end. It was okay. There was a lot of stuff that I could have done without, but let's get into it. So, when this episode starts, it starts off where Mahmoud had just left. Not necessarily the stage because he's joining in remotely, but he left his seat in front of the camera. He was so frustrated with how Gabe and Danielle were basically interrogating him and criticizing him for being this very forceful, controlling type of husband who makes his wife become Muslim, makes his wife dress a certain way. And so therefore, that's enough evidence for them to know for sure that he's going to make his children be Muslim, and everybody in his household is not going to be able to have any freedom of thought, freedom of choice, because Mahmoud is going to be forcing everybody to live a certain way, to dress a certain way, to believe a certain way, and he didn't want to be attacked. So he gets up and he leaves, and he's extremely angry. So Danielle says that she's had similar experiences with Johan. And I was like, you mean Johan has had similar experiences with you? Because from what we saw in the show, Danielle was the one that was very dominating. She was the one that was very controlling. It had to be her way or no way. And she thought because of the fact that she was making more money than he was, and because she was the American, I don't know, she felt like, he had no say so. They had to follow her lead. Whatever she wanted done, that's how he had to do it. And that's just how it was. Like, he had no opportunity to do anything because, she was so busy forcing him and bossing him around. So I didn't understand when she said that she's had a similar experience with Johan, unless she was talking about herself being just as dominating and controlling as Mahmoud. Gabe and Danielle talk about how Mahmoud's children won't have a choice in religion. Y'all don't know that. These kids are not even here yet. And this whole thing about how he was forcing Nicole to dress a certain way. How many times do we see Nicole in a hijab? How many times? Most of the time, she refused to wear one, and that's where most of their arguments stemmed from, was the fact that she refused to dress a certain way, and he would be upset about it, and they would argue about it from sun up to sundown. Even his brother had told him that you can't force her to dress a certain way. I don't know if it was his brother or his uncle, but one of his relatives had told him you can't force her to dress a certain way or be a certain way without her really understanding why she has to dress this way. And if she doesn't want to dress like that, you can't force her, because she can't do it out of being submissive. She can't do it out of, well, I have to put this hijab on myself because my husband wants me to. She has to understand why she has to wear hijab, and she has to be in agreement with the reasons of wearing a hijab. So what really kills me is that you have these Americans who go to other countries and they choose their partners from these other countries, and then expect their partners to have an American way of thinking, an American way of living. And I understand that for people who were born here, grew up here, and they have generations of their ancestors, whatever, were born here, grew up. There's this sense of pride of being an American. There's even a sense of pride from being from certain states. There's just this intense sense of pride of coming from the United States of America. And we all get it and we all understand. But when you go to another country, you have to understand that people from those countries have a sense of pride of their own country and their own culture and their own religion. And for Mahmoud to expect his wife and his children to be Muslim, Nicole went over there. There must have been something about Egypt that attracted her to that place. There must have been something about Egyptian men that attracted her to Mahmoud. She went over there. She entered his world. And when Gabe and Danielle are like, well, how dare you, want your children to be Muslim and you're going to force your children to be Muslim. I don't think it's Mahmoud thinking to himself, when I have children, I'm going to force them to be Muslim. I don't think he's thinking that way. I think Mahmoud is thinking, naturally my kids will be Muslim because I'm Muslim, because he comes from a society where it's expected to be Muslim. It's just a natural way of living. It's natural for them to be Muslim and to live a certain way, just like it's very natural for us to have freedom of choice. And religion in America is not necessarily like a big driving force. So we don't get it. A lot of Americans just don't understand. They don't get it. But in a lot of these other countries, religion is extremely important. It's day-to-day living. Like for Muslims, they pray every single day. It is such an integral part of their day-to-day life that it's like second nature to them. It's not anything that they really even are thinking about. Like the way we have to sit here and contemplate, should I go to church on Sunday? Do I feel like going to church on Sunday? What am I going to wear if I do go to church on Sunday? To them, it's just automatic. It's just done. You just do it. So for him to have this expectation of his children being Muslim, it's not because he's like, my children aren't going to have any choice to do anything else. They're going to have to be Muslim. To him, it's like they would naturally be Muslim. They would naturally want to be Muslim because I'm Muslim. And so I felt like he was being attacked. I don't think his reaction was acceptable to be that angry and to, swear and cuss and all. He was going over the top with his reaction, but for him being defensive, I was okay with that. He had every right to be defensive. And I don't think that, and he even mentioned it himself, that Nicole really wasn't standing up for him or defending him. She's been to Egypt, so she could have easily have said, hey y'all, look, the way they live over there, it's different. It's like this, it's like that, blah, blah, blah. She could have given more explanation, but she just sat there wanting everybody else to fight her battle, because in last week's episode, when everybody was arriving, this was before the tell-all actually started, but everybody was arriving and they were all congregating in the back room and they were talking, and Gabe had told Nicole that Mahmoud was his least favorite, and he had some other things to say about Mahmoud. And then Nicole says, well, do you want to tell him that? Do you want to fight my battle for me? Do you want to speak for me and tell him, what a crazy person he is? And I was just like, her silence to me spoke volumes. It was just like, she was like, I'm gonna let everybody else attack him, instead of me having to do it, I'm gonna let everybody else do it. And I don't know. Mahmoud has a temper problem. He does, he gets angry extremely quickly. That's unacceptable. But I felt like he was being attacked. I felt like they were attacking him there. So I'm not happy with how Danielle and Gabe were making it seem like that it was weird for Mahmoud to expect his children to be Muslim. So Nicole, she steps off stage to talk to Mahmoud, and she's very apologetic. Okay, she's very apologetic to him, and she tries to smooth things over, and she tries to be extremely diplomatic. It's like, oh baby, I want you to be heard. I want you to be heard, but I want them to be heard too, and I want everybody to get along, and blah blah blah. Trying to be very diplomatic. Mahmoud doesn't want judgment passed on his family. He doesn't want people, he didn't like how they were judging him, like there was something wrong with him because he wanted his children to be a certain way or whatever. Mahmoud says that they're making his religion and his country look bad because of the fact that they made it seem like it was the worst thing in the world for him to want his children to be Muslim. And I thought it was a little bit insulting. Like, I don't understand. Like, y'all want everyone else to accept the way y'all live and the way y'all do things, but then when it comes to other people, you have very low tolerance with how other people want to live their life because it's a little bit too conservative for you. You don't believe in religion, fine, you don't believe in religion, but there's a lot of people in this world that do, and there's nothing wrong with it, and it's okay to, like, why can't you just accept the fact that he's gonna want his children to be Muslim because he comes from a country where that's just the natural way, that's just the natural order of things, is that, your kids are going to be Muslim. And a lot of societies are very patriarchal. So the children will always follow the father. They'll have the father's last name, the father's religion, the father's family will be the more dominant family. Y'all need to open up your minds to how other cultures are. It's not like the way it is in Florida. It's not like the way it is in Georgia. Open up your minds to how other people are living around the world. And it may not be acceptable to us because we have freedom of choice, But in other countries, not only is the freedom a little bit differently, but people actually enjoy living the way that they live. So Mahmoud comes back. When he comes back, because he didn't want to come back, first of all, but Nicole encouraged him to come back, and he was like, well, if you want me to come back, I'm going to give him a piece of my damn mind. So he comes back, and he's cussing everybody out. He's cussing Gabe out, and Gabe was like, I don't understand why he's so mad. I was just asking a question. Gabe, you were doing more than just asking him a question. You are passing judgment on the way that he lives. Gabe says that he's coming from a different place. He's not just, attacking him just to attack Mahmoud. He says that his father is Muslim, his stepmother is Muslim, his younger siblings are Muslim. And I guess, he ain't down with how they're living. And so he's projecting that on Mahmoud and Nicole and the future children that may or may not ever come into fruition. So, so now you're making it personal. Go take those questions, that interrogation, go take it to your dad and your stepmom. Mahmoud will have nothing to do with that. He's got nothing to do with that. And I felt like, Gabe was being judgy and he was being overly critical. Mahmoud ends up apologizing for his behavior. Thank God. So we get to move on from that. Now we have Gabe and Isabel. So Sean asked Gabe, how is the bulge business going? Because he sells those those prosthetics for trans men to appear as if they've got stuff going on down there. And he says his business is booming. And in Colombia, he says that he is selling quite a bit of his product to actual men who are lacking. And so they like to, they want to wear the bulge so that they give this illusion, this grand illusion of things that are not. So they come, okay, so Trey, his friend in Colombia, I guess, I don't, is he an expatriate? He used to live in America, now he lives in Colombia. He comes on the scene, and there's this whole discussion about Trey being a bad influence on Gabe and Isabel, not allowing Gabe to be with Trey, just the two of them alone. They can only hang out at Isabel and Gabe's house, and Isabel has to be there the whole entire time because she doesn't trust Trey. And Trey was like, look, your problem is not me. Your problem is Gabe, because Gabe gets women. Women are drawn to him. Women are attracted to him. He does not need me to get women. He gets women completely on his own. And then there's this whole discussion of whether or not Isabel is controlling, and because they showed a clip where Gabe had said he just wants to be free. Like he doesn't like being controlled and ruled and dominated by Isabel and her insecurities. Isabel, she's going to have to let go. First of all, if someone's going to cheat on you, there's nothing in the world that you can do to stop them, unless you try to tie them up in your basement. There's nothing in the world that you can do to stop it from happening. If somebody really wants to step outside of their relationship, they're going to do it. They're going to find a way to do it. So it doesn't matter how controlling you are, how demanding you are. And the funny thing to me is that if it was like the other way, like when I look at these relationships, if it was the other way around, if Isabel was a guy and said things like that, well, I don't let her go hang out with her friends by herself, I have to be there, it would be such an uproar. Even with Debbie, if it was a 67-year-old man with a 27-year-old girl from Morocco, there'd be an uproar. I don't understand the double standard, but that's a whole nother situation. That's not even for this video. So Isabel is controlling. Isabel is extremely jealous. Isabel won't let Gabe do anything that's out of her sight. They talk about the business. Is it a partnership, or does Isabel work for Gabe? And I think they were both in agreement that it was more so like a partnership. Nobody works for the other. It's more so of a partnership. I don't think there's anything else to cover about Gabe and Isabel. Gabe and Isabel are doing fine. Gabe and Isabel are doing just fine. His business is doing great. Their relationship seems to be okay. They're doing fine. So let's move on to Jen and Rishi. So Jen and Rishi, they ended up reconnecting. Okay, so the last time we saw Jen and Rishi on the actual show, before the season ended, they had broken up. Jen had broken up with Rishi because He couldn't stand up to his family. He couldn't choose Jen over his family. And so, she had to go. He wasn't going to make that decision. He wasn't going to make her a priority. He wasn't going to marry her without her agreeing to live with the family. But even if she did agree to live with the family, the mom was not going to approve the marriage, period. So they broke up, and she was like, don't ever talk to me again. Don't reach out to me. So she made it seem like it was over. Well, it was far from being over. So she goes back to India for a friend's wedding, and a mutual friend, and her and Rishi end up reconnecting at the wedding. So she stayed in a hotel. Rishi stayed at his house, but they did hook up, which is crazy to me because she made such a big deal about not sleeping with him. Because of this whole situation of, why buy the calf and get the milk for free? She didn't want him just to have his fun with her without committing to her. So maybe because the dynamic of the relationship had changed, they were no longer engaged. She felt like it was okay for her to have some fun with him because they were no longer engaged. There was no prospect of marriage, so it didn't matter if they hooked up or not. So Rishi described it when they talked about that, because they had gone without being intimate for so long. I think they said like 2 years they were not intimate with one another. And they asked Rishi what was it like after 2 years, and he said it was like salvation. I was like, damn. Jen, you need to bottle that up and sell it. So they asked about not buying. Okay, so Jen says that Rishi is a mama's boy and that he won't be able to choose between his family and her. Debbie called Rishi a coward, and I thought that was going a little bit too far. The reason why I think it was too far was because of the fact that you're not understanding the dynamic of this culture. And just like we can never fathom not being able to say what we want, do what we want, have control of our own money. Like, we could never fathom living in a society that was not as free and as capitalistic as America. Some people cannot fathom going against their family or doing things that their family would not approve of. They just can't. It's just inconceivable to them to be like, you know what, Mom? F you, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to go marry my American woman. They can't fathom that. It's unacceptable. So when she called him a coward, I thought, you're not really understanding. It's one, if it was an American who was like, well, I don't know, because, my mom doesn't want me to. I'm a grown man. I'm 45 years old, but I gotta listen to what my mom says. Yeah, that's cowardly. But in that culture where the family ties are so strong, and we saw this with Sumit and Jenny, when the family ties are so strong, you shouldn't call them a coward, because this is their culture. This is just how it is over there. So the question was, Rishi, who do you choose? And Rishi said, at the end of the day, I'm going to choose my family. Then the question was, Jen and Rishi, are y'all actually still engaged or what? Because what's going on? We're confused. And Jen says, no, we're not engaged. And Rishi said, yes, I do consider us still engaged, because I do plan on marrying her one day. And they asked Rishi, do you consider Jen your fiance or just your girlfriend? He said, fiance. Then Gabe says, does your family know that you guys are engaged? Rishi, he does his double talk, but he ends up saying, yes, my family knows. I told my family. So then they put him to the test. And Jen says, a lot has to happen for us to be engaged again. And there's just too much confusion for me on whether or not, what these people plan to do with their relationship. It's like they want to be together, but Rishi can't go against his family. And Jen seems to think that there's going to come a day when maybe they will be able to be together the way that she wants. She thinks that day might come. And so she's holding on to hope that might happen. And Rishi is letting her hold on to that hope instead of putting his foot down and telling her that will never happen. My family will never agree with me living with you. And because, of the society that I live in, I can't go against my family. He will never just tell her that. Like, the society that I live in, unless I completely go against everything that I know and everything that I've ever believed in, I cannot be with you, Jen. It's not going to happen. We're not going to run off into the sunset together happily ever after, because I have to respect my family's wishes. I'm the only one that can take care of my mom and my uncle. I'm the main breadwinner. I cannot leave them to be with you. He just won't come out and say that. He just wants her to believe that one day they're going to have their happily ever after. So Jen's friends, Myra and Randy, they show up, and the friends said that they had no idea that they were back on, because they were like, when she told us she was going to India for her wedding, she said that she didn't, she basically said that she might see Rishi, and Rishi might be there, and we never really heard anything else from her as far as her and Rishi's relationship, so we thought that they were still done. Myra says that it's never going to work. Her and Rishi it's never going to work out. And Nicole says that the cultural ties are really strong. So your friends are telling you that it's not going to work out. Outsiders are telling you that it's not going to work out. The astrologer told Rishi it's not going to work out. The stars are telling you it's not going to work out. Rishi's family is telling you it's not going to work out. And for some reason, y'all are still fooling around with one another. And for what? Like, if you just want to have fun, just say it. Just say it. We know we're not going to get married. Marriage will never happen. We're just having a good time. If I ever come by India, he's going to hook me up. We're going to do our thing. But then I'm going to bounce. We're just, just, if that's what it is, then just say that. But don't sit up here making us believe that y'all believe that one day y'all are going to get married. So then Rishi's mom and uncle, they come to the scene, and the family is on an agreement with Rishi being engaged to Jen. They said that they did not know that Jen and Rishi were engaged. Rishi reveals to his family that he is thinking about marrying Jen. Rishi says that he plans to marry Jen, but Jen refuses to live with his family. He uses that like, in a way, it's kind of like he's putting the blame off of him and putting it on her. Like, but for her not wanting to live with my family, we would have been married by now. Rishi's mom says that this marriage absolutely, positively, unequivocally cannot happen because Jen is just too damn old. Jen calls it age shaming. It's not age shaming, girl. It's not age shaming. They want their son to have children. They want Rishi to leave a legacy behind. It's not necessarily age shaming. It's not like, you're undesirable because of your age or whatever. Or maybe she is undesirable because of her age. I don't know. But I don't really see it as age shaming the way that I understand age shaming, where you make fun of people because of because they're older. I don't really see it. I think it's to them, they see her as a beautiful, accomplished woman, but realistically, she can't give him children. And it's important for Rishi to have kids. They want that for their son. So it's not because it's like it's maybe biology shaming. It's just biologically she can't give him children. So that's why they like, no, this isn't going to work. We're not going to support this. Jen demanded that Rishi tell his mother that he's going to marry her no matter what. So he says something to his mom, but it wasn't that. And so they tell Jen, oh, he didn't even say that. He didn't even tell her that. And so she demanded for him to say it again. So he tells his mom that he plans on marrying Jen. He wants to marry Jen. And the mom says, no. He cannot marry her. Jen says Rishi is a lot of talk. Oh, Jen was basically saying, even if he tells his mom that he wants to marry me, it doesn't even really matter because Rishi is a lot of talk and no action. And yes, of course, Rishi is a lot of talk and no action. I don't know Rishi is not serious about Jen. He's not serious about anything. To me, he's just a player. He's a playboy. He is still like, the thing is also, he loves the attention. He loves himself so much. And I don't think he can control himself when women are in his DMs, letting him know that they find him attractive or whatever. I don't think he can control himself. That right there is his weakness. And I don't see Rishi as, oh, y'all, I don't understand what Jen is doing. He's not the marrying type. He's never been the marrying type. Jen has been to India 2 times and she has not gotten married. The first time she went there, then she found out there was something wrong with her damn visa. So she came back, then she got her visa fixed and she goes back again, still no marriage. If he really, really wanted to marry her, they would have gotten married that first time around when she first returned to India. Jen says, okay, so Myra and Randy, they gave their opinion. Okay, so we moved on from Jen and Rishi. Okay, that story ended. Myra and Randy gave their opinion on the other couples. So they love Debbie and they think that Osama is a jerk. They don't like Osama. And Osama said that, hey, y'all don't understand. Debbie's the one that tricked me. She made me believe that we were going to go to America and start our life together in America. And then once she arrived in Morocco, she completely flipped the script on me. Myra and Randy think that Danielle emasculated Johan and that she was too controlling. Debbie also agreed that Danielle was too controlling. And Danielle, I don't know what world she's living in, but she seems to think that she didn't do any of this stuff. I mean, you called this man your wife to his face. You said to him when y'all were on the balcony of that apartment, you said to him, well, because I'm going to be paying on all the bills, then you're going to be my wife. You completely emasculated him. Danielle says, well, if he wants to be the patriarch of the family, then he needs to pay all the bills, which I thought was hilarious when she said that, because you went to a third world country. You went to a country where the majority of the people are living in poverty, and tourism is their biggest thing. Okay. Without tourism, that economy collapses. You go to this country and you meet a guy who lives in poverty. He lives in because of his job, I guess he was allowed to live on the resort, but his real home is out there in the village somewhere where it's like a whole bunch of people living in one little tiny house. That's where he's coming from. So you go to this impoverished country and you meet a man who lives in poverty, I guess, barely above it. And then you berate him because he doesn't pay all the bills, when you knew exactly what the situation was. You've been to his home. You've seen how his family was living. And if he didn't have this job at the resort, I mean, he would be, look, once again, you're trying to instill your American values on other people. This whole idea of, well, if he wants to run the show, then he needs to be paying all the bills, knowing damn well that he doesn't have the ability to do that. That's just very pompous and wrong. I don't even know what else to call it. It's just absolutely disgusting, Danielle, that you would think that way. Because so it's for you, it's all about you being the American and you having the money. That's why you feel like you have the right to degrade him, to talk down on him, to talk down at him, tell him what to do, act like, you are his boss. I wanted to use another term. You want to act like you're his boss. He has to listen to you. You run the show because you're the one with the money. So why don't you be with the man who has the money? Why don't you be with a man who has the means to allow you to do whatever you want to do, to allow you to not work if you don't want to have to work? But if you're going to choose a man who is poor, then don't use that against him. Anyways. So moving on from there. So during the break, everyone tried to convince Jen that Rishi is a player. I don't think Jen's going to listen. I mean, the fact that you would even go back to India and then hook up with him after you were so adamant about oh, don't ever contact me again. It's over. This is the last time that you'll ever see me face to face. And then you jump in the bed with him when you go back to it. Girl. And Rishi knows this. He knows that, oh, Jen's just playing games. Y'all can tell her whatever the hell y'all want to tell her. When all this is said and done, we're going to be, FaceTiming each other. We're going to be sexting each other. It's going to be on and popping once again. And she'll make another trip to India and it's going to be on and popping when she gets here. So y'all go ahead and say whatever. I know who Jen is. I know what Jen is all about, and Jen will never stop. Moving on. So then there's this little tiny break, and okay, so they come back from the break. So Debbie, I don't know how they got on this topic, but Debbie said that she's not even attracted to younger men. She says that she's attracted to older men who are more closer to her age, but she just fell in love with Osama for some reason. She just fell for him. She says that Casablanca was just wishful thinking on Osama's part, and that nothing went down in Casablanca. Debbie says that the last time that she was intimate with somebody was 12 years ago. Okay, then they go into Gabe's situation. So we go it was like a deep dive, a very deep dive into Gabe and his transition and the logistics of his surgery. I mean, we got more than we bargained for when he was explaining exactly how they were able to uh, surgically turn him into a man. I'm pretty sure if you're watching this, you saw that, so I don't even have to go into details with that. But just to kind of touch on some very general, broad points, Gabe says that he's basically, he's always on ready, if you know what I mean. He's always ready to go, so that's not an issue there. He says that it took 9 months for him to be able to urinate after his surgery. 9 months because his urethra was blocked. And so he had to use a catheter. Wow. So he goes into details of explaining that he did shed a lot of light because I'm pretty sure a lot of people were confused, like how do you make something out of nothing, if you know what I mean. And so he gives us a lot of information on that. He explained, what they took from this part of his body to make something on that part of his body, etc. So he's very satisfied. And your girl Isabel is very satisfied, and that's really all that matters. Moving on to Chris and Jamie. So they showed the clip of Chris pushing Jamie, and the question was, Chris, what do you think about that? After they showed that clip of her physically putting her hands on Jamie when they were in the van and pushing her. And Chris does not take any accountability at all. She was not apologetic. She just started making up excuses about how she was so mad, and Jamie wouldn't leave her alone, and Jamie kept on talking. And she told Jamie to go away, but Jamie wouldn't leave. And so she just kind of blacked out. When people don't listen to her when she's mad, she ends up blacking out. So she took no accountability for putting her hands on Jamie. Chris blames Jamie for their financial struggle. She says that, she quit her job. She chose to quit her job, so that's why she couldn't pay the rent. Chris was like double talking. In one instance, she'll talk about how she was working. So when the question was, you ghosted her. You ghosted your wife. Her excuse was, I was working morning, noon, and night to make money to support us. But then she only paid the rent. According to Jamie, she only paid the rent one time. And Jamie had to leave the apartment. So they ended up losing that apartment. So you're working so hard to support y'all. That's why you can't talk to her. You can't FaceTime her. You can't text her or anything because you're working so hard. But then where's the money going? Because it wasn't going to pay for the rent for that apartment. So like, what exactly are you saying? So it didn't make any sense. Jamie said that Chris did not send money. She only sent money one time, which was $746, and she showed proof of that. And then Chris says, well, the other money that I sent to her didn't come from my bank account. Well, how did you send it to her? Did you what did you do? Did you tie dollar bills on pigeons and have them fly over to Colombia? How did you send it to her? I don't understand. Like, how, you live in America, she lives in Colombia. How were you sending money to her if it wasn't through some type of a bank transaction or PayPal or something like that? But anyway, she says, I was sending money to her, but it wasn't from that account, from another account or whatever the hell she said. And Jamie completely denied it. Chris says that she says that she did not leave Jamie in debt. She says that's not true. Jamie says that she is in debt. Both say that now that as far as the status of the relationship, both of them say that they are not married. They don't consider themselves married. They consider themselves single. So did y'all get a divorce? Because that wasn't even talked about. How do you go from being married to not married without a divorce? Chris says that she had sent over $10,000 to Jamie in the course of their relationship. And Jamie was like, no, she only sent me about $1,000. Huge discrepancies with these people's stories. Chris accused Jamie of cheating on her. Jamie says that she was talking to another woman, but she thought the relationship was over because Chris ghosted her. She hadn't heard from her in months, and so she thought that they had broken up, so she moved on to somebody else. Chris says that Chris did wonderful. Yeah. So every time this issue came up about whether or not Jamie cheated on Chris, Jamie will say, I hadn't heard from her. She was gone for several months or several weeks. No communication. I thought she broke up with me, so I moved on. And Chris will come back with, oh, I wasn't gone that long. I was only gone for a couple of days. And, she started seeing somebody else. I tend to believe Jamie because we saw with our own eyes on TV that when Chris came back to the United States, she was gone for 5 months. She was gone for 5 months. And we saw how Jamie kept on complaining to Chris about, you don't call me. There's no communication. I keep trying to call you, but you don't answer the phone. She completely ghosted her own wife for 5 months. And you want us to believe that you had never done this before? That the last time you ghosted her was only for a couple of days? No, I believe Jamie. I think Chris did one of her disappearing acts and Jamie thought that the relationship was over. I read on Reddit, when this is about Chris's health, I had read on Reddit that someone had said that they knew Chris personally and they said she does not have narcolepsy. They said that she nods off or blacks out. I don't know if this is like after taking some type of substance or what. She'll kind of like nod off or black out, but it's not narcolepsy. Just a little side note on that. So when they're talking about all of this infidelity stuff, before we get there, Debbie had called Jamie a predator, and I didn't like that. I didn't like that Debbie called Jamie a predator and said that Jamie was using Chris. I don't like that. Chris, to me, it was so full of lies, and Chris put her hands on Jamie. What are you talking about, Debbie? Were we watching the same show? No. No. Debbie was wrong for that. So Jamie says, just as much as she's accusing me of cheating on her, her ex-boyfriend was contacting me and sending me nude pictures of Chris, pictures of them being intimate together, and I have all the proof right here on my phone. So she's basically accusing Chris of cheating on her with her ex, and we'll see how that goes next week. And I've kept y'all way too long. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. On your way out, please don't forget to rate the video. If you like this content, please subscribe to my channel, and then I will definitely talk to you later. Bye.